So what we'll do is we'll play this forward. It looks like this is going to be violent. If we get a trade back down into here, cool. We might be able to take a long out of this. I think that the movement looks like it's already sort of mitigated itself, so I wouldn't be surprised if we just blast it off. And then we'll see if we get some sort of pocket trades to take. Cool? Cool. We'll go from there. So let's zoom into this, actually. Everybody understand why we're looking long with that narrative? Right? Trading into this area, sharp movement away, cool. This is not where you want to short. You're now shorting off of a weak high. Right? And the reason I expect it to be violent is because we had this movement down. We've got equal highs here. We've traded into this and we're starting to see some expansion from this prior zone. So we might run these out before going, but this is just going to go. And if we had that high marked out, what have we got? We've got this here. And then by extension, we've got this up here. And you'll notice this as well, these sort of immediate mitigations. These are areas for aggressive trades, but if we're waiting for something conclusive, essentially what you're looking at is that these are reasons to stay in, which also function as aggressive ways to get involved, but nothing that I'm interested in. Right? We'll wait for something to come back down if we get it, or at the very least look for some sort of sideways and then failure up there. Right, so you're seeing major sideways sweeps the bottom there, trades through. As soon as that traded through, another rocket ship as we trade higher to this high, it looks like. But this is sort of what you're looking at in terms of what you want to be with narrative. Lethargic. This is just accumulating shorts before we run all that liquidity up. Right? So when we talk about highs and whatnot, for example, what we're looking at here, if we were to draw out our area of interest of whereabouts we were looking for a retracement to, you might draw it from here, right? And then that lines up with this movement, cool, right? So you're looking for confluence of area, and then you can determine what sort of reaction you want to see from there. Ideally, we get a change in order flow, or at the very least, some significant buying that stops the attempt to sell, which essentially would be how to quantify what I would consider a reaction, right? You're looking at this movement, cool, but that attempt to sell off was weak. You're seeing major buying stopping it underneath lows, right? That's kind of how I quantify reactions. So if we were looking at an area of interest, right, you got your change in order flow, you now got your trade back in. Obviously that looks like it failed. So even if you bought the close of that candle, right, and then you just take your shot, your stops underneath there. And this is what you're expecting to see as an example, right? So that's kind of what we'll look for reactions as well. The growth with reactionary analysis is that you're understanding what your short-term narrative is. And by short-term, I mean your 1 minute trading in to mitigate a lower time frame zone, which then takes out early longs, and then away you go, right? So for example, this movement here from that area was just mitigating this trading back down, sweeping there. You could have argued it was going to take that low, I suppose, too. But you're not expecting this low to go on a rocket ship straight away. Sometimes that will happen, depending on if you've taken a major low or not. If you haven't, then essentially this is still in a downtrend until you get that failure, right? And even then, you trade it back in to where? This area here. So you have to kind of understand what your lower time frame narrative is doing too when we're studying price. Now, what's the purpose of this area here where we just traded away from? Couldn't make a valid high, but it's right underneath the structural area of interest. Now, those of you guys that have been studying, and I know Sean was doing some back testing and asking some questions, which is cool. Our expectation at some point will be to trade back into this higher time frame zone. That might not necessarily happen straight away, right? We judge major failure by that. So for example, say we just spike down right now after breaking this high and taking liquidity, right? We're now trading back in. Ideally, we take this SNDR, trade back up, and now we're looking for our move back down into here, right? And that's your aggressive short opportunity where you're expecting that movement back down, but you're reacting to what price is doing. And the SNDR here at the top is very telling of that. If this area breaks, we go back down to this origin. So that high there is 42.75. Cool. And you'll notice these wicks are very enticing. You now have your lower time frame area. So this was that low that put in that high. This breaks. Now you might get your trade back in. And if you're looking at the dome, you can probably tell a little bit of the order flow that's going on here. Right? You see these attempts to rally that are being sold into. We just took that by a tick. But again, there's no reason really to get in here at all, even if we're spotting weakness. Right? You want this low taken at 33. I don't consider that one or that one. I need this one taken. This is accumulating. It looks weak to me. And your first target, right? So there's your tap in. And you'll notice that these changes in order flow quite often hit imbalances. Which gives you what? It gives you that, well, do we expect the first imbalance to put in a new high? Or do we expect this move up to now fail? What exactly are we looking at here? And you might not consider shorting because of that. And that's fair. Right? But you'll find that it's the reaction of this. If this imbalance cannot, then we go lower into this area here. And now we're looking at this area to determine if we want to go long or not. Right now, what we're looking at is you've got your pocket here, okay? Which is just underneath your SNDR. So if we get failure in here, that would take us back up into that. That's how you look for your scalp. And then you can determine what your higher time frame movement should do. If we're starting to see failure, like, and it's just delivering on a higher time frame underneath candles, etc., can't put in a valid high of this move, then you're probably good to reach back up here maybe, right? Or at minimum, like trading back up above this. Confusing? Let's focus on this area and the reaction we want to see from it. Personally, I'd be looking shorting in here, and my stop will be above this candle. Right? I'm not going to take this. We're just going to monitor what price is doing. For this purposes of this back test, we're going to look for a potential long trigger inside of our pocket and see how that delivers. Right. And you're seeing obvious follow through, the inability for bullish price action to do much. We're just spooling down, likely to liquidate that SNDR. Probably the fastest 50-point short that'll come from this day on the 5th of June. Liquidated the SNDR, not quite at our area of interest. You'll notice that quite often you get a bounce off the 50%. You'll notice as well, I'm not going to take a trade just because of location, right? Let's slow this down a little bit. Whether that works out or not. Right? Essentially what I'm looking at is this pocket is here, but where's our confluence? Our confluence is this fractal. Right there. Right? Which is the area, like way down here, that we might get a tap into as well, that broke this high as well. Right? And if we took, I bet you if we took the midpoint of like this zone, it would probably land around there as well. Right? So if we took this, you're looking at your midpoint at 560. Right? So that's also feasible if we trade back down into this for a movement. Right? But we'll focus on the reactions that we get. Right now we're obviously spooling lower, and we don't want to be early, we just want to be right. So what do we want to see initially? We want to see some sort of higher time frame buying begin. So this is good. Right? You've got one attempt to reverse the trend here. You could argue a second. I want to see something a little predominant on a third, and then ideally running everybody out. Those of you that enjoy looking at time, you're at 9:53, so shocking. This is pretty much the reversal window that occurs quite often. So our expectation is this low being taken, regardless of what happens with this bar. Unless this bar closes above here, we're expecting that low to get taken. Could we have made 10 points in there? Probably. Right? So this is sideways. Again, I want this fractal. And we're noticing, at least with this right now, the inability for price to really generate significant movement. Now, who would be long here aggressively? taking your shot, and if it liquidates underneath here, then we're wrong. And let's be honest as well, right? You've got sideways, not really flushing down. This is very aggressive of an area where you're looking for that scalp. Right? And if you're that aggressive and you're expecting movement, like we're getting dojis on bullish PA, even if we get a trade through the open of this, I think that's still aggressive. What you want is a change in order flow, or at the very least, something climactic, which then gives you a trigger as well. What we're going to do here is we'll look at our 5-minute chart. Right? We've got 26 seconds for this close. And what you might find is that if this bar closes strongly and then our next one sweeps and fails it, then we get a violent move based off of this 5-minute. And it looks like we're actually in the middle of this imbalance here too. And if we're looking at our 15-minute chart, not really what we want to see out of this high. Right? I don't see much failure here. And I notice some of you guys are talking a lot about these candles where you're expecting higher prices because of situations like this. Right? We kind of just sold off. It's a good high on a 1-minute to take us lower. Right? And I do expect that the movement up would likely come back down after we tapped into this area here. So if we're forming a narrative, essentially what I want to see is I want to see some sort of reaction or failure in here. And wherever that comes from, if that comes from, say, here at 84, cool. I'd be looking at something like this and then trading back down to the area that broke out from this downtrend, and then ideally a shove up. Right? And it's kind of that sort of simple, but on the lower time frame, yeah, you've got your SNDR that we've now snapped, trade up. If this move doesn't have failure, we go underneath this and we probably go quite a bit lower. 70 to 30 run, that's right. The benefit of trading this way is that even if this runs 100 points, there's still a high likelihood if we get a reaction in here that we trade up here. And you'll see Socio take these a lot. Okay, so here's our 5-minute candle opening now. We're starting to see sideways, still nothing really. I want to see that candle swept. Right? So if this trades through, ideally, this would be an area where we'd be looking to take our trade from. This is still very aggressive. Right? It's aggressive because we're getting in on the downtrend. That's what I consider aggressive movement. Right? If you're buying as the market is still technically bearish, it's the aggressive trade. A conservative trade, in my opinion of the definition, is once the market has at least flipped bullish on a lower time frame when you're buying. And if we look at our 5-minute right now, like Socio's just saying, we've now swept and we've traded through inside of our pocket. And if we look at this right now, we're deeming that this is at least reacting from this zone. And if we're wrong, then I'm out at 82 here. right? Or at least, you know what, we'll actually let this kind of run, right? There's a possibility that it tops in and then comes down and liquidates this at 82. And you guys will notice this when you're taking these aggressive trades, that we get our trigger, it comes down, sweeps again, whatever, as it chops around in here. Right? So when you're trading this aggressively, essentially what you're looking at is, if we trade up here, say we trade up to 92.75, this line, and we fail to make a change in order flow, or if we change the order flow and trade above this candle, either way, we want that downward move to be respected. And quite often that downward move, as you guys, some of you guys study SBS, you'll get these movements where you get something like this. It then runs both sides, and then the move goes. This is a viable scenario, and it's also why in our methodology we have like a 10-point stop or something like that. Right? With these moves, I would even say a little bit wider than that, just because of this volatility. Right? That's only 7 points in fairness, but if we're going to trade above here 95 and then come down, the midpoint of that is about 8 points, right? So yeah, it might take this out by a few ticks, which would also coincide with maybe the midpoint of this here, right? I'm going to leave this at 20 points because I'm looking for a larger move, and this would likely trade up to this fractal here. So I'm going to leave my target of 24.25, and we'll essentially look at how price is playing out here. This will be my expectation if we're going to be right. And we'll see how this delivers, right? But my point is that if we're trading aggressively with the 5 minute, then I'm not going to be quick to move my stop to here or to break even if this moves up here, right? Because I'm trusting the narrative and the order flow of what's going on in here, and I'm taking my shot. Does that make sense to everybody, or does anybody have any questions on that? Right? If you're trading the scalp, then yes, you want to move to break even or the manipulation straight away and take your points and mitigate your risk. If you're taking a position where you're expecting a little bit wider of a move, then you want to be a little bit more generous. I'm not suggesting holding to like here, right? But like if my stop was say 75 right now and I'm risking 14, 15 points to make 40, I'm fine with that. So let's see how this goes. So it triggered us in on our 5 minute, cool. Obviously our first target, we're looking for this 94.75 to break. Even if it doesn't, that's fine as long as we don't get some cataclysmic bearish price action. Right, you see we're bouncing off the top of this. There's that high. Do we break it? Ooh. There it goes. Beautiful. Still our last structural bear bar. This one did not close underneath it. Right? So if you're scalping, essentially what you're looking at is this going to be a range at the bottom here? Or do we just continue? And you might have taken your 10 points here off of 99. And now you're waiting for another trade. Right? The purpose of this backtesting is to try and find the area of interest where we have a high probability move to come out. And go from there. Cute. So violent sell-off, our expectation's probably this low right now. And what you'll likely find, if our move's going to work out properly, is that the candles will hold on the 5-minute chart as we chop around in here. The bodies won't close underneath it. There goes that low. Let's see if it takes us out or not. Right, so now we've tapped into this fractal and twice we've swept. This is very dangerous for the bearish price action now. Anybody who's looking short, if this cannot close strongly bearish, then we go flying above this high and by extension, probably pretty quick up to here based off of how violent this movement was. And that's essentially what we're trying to find, right? We're trying to find areas of interest that's going to deliver similar PA. Right? We want to get in alignment with what the 15-minute time frame is doing. So what we'll do is, if this looks like it's going to really work out, if we get a trade back in after this high, then we'll look at what a conservative entry might have looked like. Right? We've now ranged. Looks like we're ready to expand this range. If we get a movement back down, and I'd be looking something like in here at 90-ish, let's say. Although probably touch the open of this at 95. That will be an area that that I'd be looking to take a conservative trade on. The problem with conservative trading, right, if there is one, is that if you get a higher time frame movement, you often don't get that trade back in because it's just gone. Right? That's where the change of order flow sort of occurs. So this is coming back down. Is it going to give us something? And do we get 95? Barely tapped into it. Oh my God. Okay, well, it's too slow on that. Holy crap. That was wild. Wow, that open of the hour was violent. I probably should have hopped back in. Or not hop back in, but add it in there, even though that movement came down quick. I very rarely limit in. Because I like to see how price behaves around a level. What I'm looking for is sharp movement in, sharp movement out, right? Or at least the inability to trade lower after failure, right? So this is going to go on a rocket ship now. Right? Because everybody just got triggered in by that firefly movement. Well, let's see where we get here.
Target filled.
Target filled, right? So now, cool. Are we out too early? Low stress. Did you see that candle? Did you see that candle spike down? Low stress. Low stress for the legend, for you. My goodness. Would it be wrong to limit in? Wrong? No. Not wrong. No. Essentially what you're doing when you're placing limit orders is you're trading, like making certain that you're in at that area. And the trade-off for that is that you don't care how it reacts here. What if it blasts through? Right? So when you're trading limit, you better be certain, right? So like, would it be a bad idea of trading a limit after this candle? No. No, I don't think so. Would it be bad having a limit order underneath this in this movement? I think that's probably a poor way of doing it, because we want to see how it reacts underneath here. Right? But when you're confident in an area and you want to make certain that you're in with that order flow, then yes. This would be one of the few instances where I would say that it's viable. But I much prefer failure market in, like even in here, rather than like trying to get involved in the same spot. Now, this is violent. I'm still curious what's going on here. So I took the conservative exit. But based off of this candle, if we get some sort of continuation or weak selling right here in 40 seconds, then we take this high almost immediately. And I missed out on another 30 points or whatever it's going to end up being. And that is what it is. Right? You could argue taking this high of 30.50 as a target instead, and I put it at the zone itself, the SNDR. Yes, absolutely. Right? Say you're in with 10 micros or something from wherever our entry was, 89. You know, you might take some on, take some off, add some on, take some off, letting it run. And then essentially what you're doing there is you're either considering to add on a pullback, or you're still involved partially with this. What I personally like to do, and this doesn't necessarily mean for you guys, I like to be in the market or I'm out of the market. Right? Now, obviously, this is an instance here where being out of the market with your profit and waiting is advantageous. I would have looked like a fool, and you guys see me take trades off way too soon quite often and miss stuff like this. Right? Like, for example, if I was in, so I don't know, say here at 75 or something and took 20 points and then missed like 80, that's where partialing obviously has a benefit. So the expectation is what sort of price action you're expecting to deliver, or at the very least trading underneath your lows that close, right? So stop here, then stop here, right? And then stop here, inside, 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 right? Closure, so stop here, stop here, stop here, stop here, and then you're finally taken out up there, right? And the reason you're looking at where things are closed is because if you have inside candles, quite often you'll see sweep, sweep, and go. So that kind of gives you a little bit of wiggle room with your swing. But it depends how aggressive you are. Right? So now what have we got? And just out of curiosity, where do you think this movement tapped into? Shocker, right? Big brain movement, as some would say. Big brain area of interest, right? And now it's trading back down probably to this area again. Now, if we're looking at this and you're looking for an area to get involved, we're probably trading back down to this fractal that really sent us up in the first place, right? You've got this here. And now we're looking to see, should we get a reaction inside of this? What exactly are we going to be looking for? Right? The liquidity is underneath this low. You've got a flat bottom here as well at 98, which I'd be shocked if it didn't get taken. Yes, that's right. That's right. So essentially you're looking at the initial movement. What you're looking at with the initial movement and the sort of checklist that goes through your mind is, what's its purpose? And this occurs on every time frame. This low mitigated this area here and caused our change in order flow. That was its job. This low's job wasn't to put in this high. This low's job wasn't to put in this high. It did the exact same thing on your intermediate time frame. It traded into this area that's responsible for sending price down. That was its job. Okay. And now ideally we're looking for a movement back in. Get rid of this now. That's pretty much solved it. You're looking for the movement back in to then get long. And by the way, is our narrative trading down here or up here? A or B? It's B, right? This one. Because we're looking at that movement traded higher. We took the liquidity. We're now trading back in and failing. Right? We're expecting this up here unless we get this movement from this area violently delivering on a higher time frame down, which throws our narrative out the window. Right? So with the understanding that we're expecting this to go before this, any trades we take from the short side are retracements. And you could argue that we could have taken a trade here and we would have made some money on it. Cool. This looks like it wants to take this high. It might go above here. We're inside of our pocket on the short side. Well, that's exactly it. Right? So do we want to fight it above these highs, trying to short for that retracement down? Or is it much easier to take these longs with our narrative being taking this high? Some days you will get that trade back down for 30 points. Right? You can certainly argue that there's been some violent order flow, and I would expect this trade back down if it gives it to us to be violent. But I mean, like, we want to trade with the trend and look for failure. With the trend, look for failure. What's the 1 minute doing? to facilitate what the 15-minute needs to do? Yes. Yes. Right? 1, 2, 3. This will be the fourth attempt. Right? And we're sitting patient for a trade back down into here. It could be a violent movement back down for sure, right? We would look at this, right? To come down like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to take this low. Right? For the same reason that, like, we're looking at where or how we expect this high to be taken. So if we see lethargic movement on this leg, I'm not expecting this push to break this high. It could, right? We're failing right now to put in a valid high, right? So I expect this high to go at 37. We're going to be patient and wait. I'm not shorting for the movement back down because I don't know if it's going to take this high or this one. But for me, this didn't retrace enough for me to get involved. And based off of how this is delivering, I would expect a movement back down. So if I miss it, then I miss it. If I miss it, then I miss it. Yes. But I'm expecting that high to go. Right? Now, you scalpers very well could be looking at something in here and like taking a long or something in here for a scalp. For the purpose of this, I'm not going to scalp any of these moves based off of price action narrative. But if this sweeps here, you got 25 seconds, and then this high goes. Ooh. 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 You ready for it? Everybody piling in short. There we go. Now that, yeah, you got your 3 drives pattern here, right? Look at the 5, sure. There's your 5 minute. Right? So I'd actually expect, I think there's a strong possibility if we don't respect this imbalance here, that we actually come underneath this low at 92.75. And the reason is because we failed up here twice. Right? So, I mean, limit order, I still think this liquidity here is huge. But you can understand why I'm not like trying to fight the short trade back down for the retracement. I'd much rather take the long. Speed this up a little bit for our movement down under. True. Very true. So you'd be expecting a movement back in. Well, I suppose that's not true. But what's our prevailing piece of information? We don't have a valid high. That's true. Right? So that leads us to think higher prices. But what's the market trying to do right now? Is it trying to rally or is it trying to sell off? That's right. Right? Pushed up here. Bang. Pushed up here. Bang. Right? Then sideways. Tried to sell off here. Couldn't. So it took that high. And now what's happened? Right? So now we've failed up here, and you have your wedge. And now we've actually closed underneath this. Should we trade below here, we likely go back down. Right? And the reason is because this low put in that high that failed. We should trade below this weak low now. We want how violent of a move? We've got this. There it goes. Do we get our trade back in? This would be one of the few viable short ideas with your narrative of trading lower. Right? And again, looking for this low. And then as soon as everybody is greedy short, our narrative strikes of taking this high. There's your first pocket. Okay. Probably would have got a nice 10-point scalp out of that maybe. Now I'm not taking this inside of here because I expect this liquidity to be taken. And now we're back inside of our higher time frame area of interest. Right? So one of the questions that I get is, can we take trades aggressively out of here? And you can with a wide stop, but I want to implore on you guys that we want to avoid looking just at entry and areas, right? Trading isn't just, I want to buy at the 65% area, and if I'm right 60% of the time and wrong 40, but I make 2 to 1, then I can make money. And that's true, right? Some people trade that way, and that's awesome, right? You'd probably make money if you had a 20-point stop from this area here at, I don't know, 601, right? Do I expect it to take this low? It could. It certainly could, right? Which is why I'm not limiting in right now, right? We're trying to analyze based off of what price is doing and then get involved at areas of reversal based off of narrative, right? So our 5-minute just opened. It's now traded down here. We've now got a violent candle after this. What do you guys think? Do you think we got to move back up to here? Are you waiting for a trigger? Are we looking for a retracement and then maybe another movement down? Are we waiting for this low to get taken? Mitigated the 1 minute fair value gap. Are you talking about like this one? Or are you talking about this? Yeah, very possible. Okay. Okay. That's exactly what I was just going to ask. So, can we safely expect right now this low to get taken? Should we at least consider it? Right? So, with that idea, say we're sitting on our hands right now, which we are, would we, even if we're not short and we're watching price unfold, what would we need to see to take that expectation and say maybe it's not correct right now? What would you need to see from here or in the next, even call it 5 or 10 minutes? What sort of price action would you want to see to look long or to get short? What would you need to see? Right? You'd want to see a strong defense of this low. Recall that these lows are weak until they're not, which sounds silly, but what does that mean? What it means is that if you have a strong spike down and then we start to see lower time frame structure occur, now we anticipate this low to be strong, right? For example, this is a weak high. We're in a bullish trend. We saw this movement, right? We've now had failure here. So in the interim, this is a strong high still because we're seeing this lethargic movement lead to failure, right? So now we have a potentially strong high and we're determining whether this low is in fact weak or strong. What if we get a movement out of here that trades back in here and we go sideways in the middle? Right? What if our 5-minute candle closes here? What if it closes here? Right? Either way, I think we can all agree that we want to wait for a little bit more information. This isn't ideally what I want to see from this move. We've taken this liquidity, so now we can anticipate potentially a movement back up to here. But the problem with that is that we're looking at this being a weak low, and we don't want to risk off of weak lows. Okay. right inside of our area. No trigger. Strongly up to this fractal. Strong movement away, at least so far. Okay. Anybody long, anybody short? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're liking this gold? Yep, I agree with this. So what we're looking at right now, in my opinion, is that. We've traded into this area here. Not quite the midpoint of this move, but certainly into this, which we're now assuming is an order block. We've just taken this liquidity though. I'm not considering shorts as my narrative is higher. But that doesn't mean that I'm taking longs on all movement. In fairness, this could have been a long scalp. Climactic action after this failure inside of our origin. After taking liquidity. But I didn't like the trigger and I didn't like how this closed underneath it. I do think you'll get a long or a short scalp out of this. I think it's uncertain. So I think that based off of that uncertainty that we're going to enter a range. We can all agree that shorting here is a bad idea. If you're going to go short at all, you want to be short in this area of interest. And if you're going to go long, you want to be long from this area of interest. And if we're wrong, then we're wrong. I'm going to sit on my hands as I'm only going to take maybe 2 or 3 trades out of this price action. And I don't see anything conclusive on the long side yet. You've got 1 minute and 40 seconds for the next 5-minute candle. And I'm very curious to see how that plays out. As it stands right now, our 5-minute candle is extremely dangerous for the short side. We've just swept this 5-minute candle's high. We've now come taking the liquidity of this candle, and what did we see? Violent movement. But not just violent movement. We saw a violent movement out of the area that produced violent movement. That's dangerous. Right? Now you could argue the same sort of thing if we get a violent short out of this area that just sent us lower. But taking this low and going on a rocket ship, if you're going to short, be very careful of your narrative. Your liquidity is actually above this high here at 31. But I think you get paid if this trades underneath this low at 13. Then I think we trade probably back lower down to this area, like 605. You really don't like that, eh? Okay. We still holding our short? Those of you guys that were so interested? 605. Beautiful tap into this candle. You might get a sweep of this down here at 90. what I'm considering right now, we've got this. Right? If we're going to enter a range, then beautiful. Then we need a sweep underneath wherever the range ends up being. Say it's like down here in the high 90s. We might even take this low, which would be ideal for you guys that are looking short. I do think we're pulling back, at least right now. My concern is that 5-minute candle, of course, but if we enter a range, then you're probably going to see defense of this area here. And this will actually tie in quite nicely to, if we get a range, then we might actually use this for future study. This will be really good. Equal highs there, I think. Is that equal highs? 23, 25. So we actually swept above here. Cool. Closed above this candle. Does that matter inside of a range? Not necessarily. We're looking for a change in personality. I think we can all agree, however, this is a little unclear. However, what do we start having now on our lower time frame? Spike down. This traded above that. So paraphrasing, we've got something going on like this. Be interesting to see if we sweep below here. But I think we would need a strong body closure underneath this low. Otherwise, we might be forming lower time frame structure. Right. Longs aren't out of the woods yet, by any means. Taking liquidity. 601, that closed at 602. So here we go. Do we expect this one? Or do we expect this one? Never mind the higher time frame narrative. If this one goes, I think we all agree this one goes. Whereas this one going doesn't necessarily mean this one goes. Right? But quantify it. Why do we expect this one over this one? Or this one over this one? Valid high above this. Okay. Okay. So we got a body closure above this candle, didn't we? Now we're in a range. So you could argue that we created a valid high here. And now we're just retracing back in to go short. Can't we? Right? This is your last structural bullish bar. That's essentially been creating a range the entire time. So what do we do? Right? We don't want to be chasing each movement down, holding for this, and then getting stopped out. We need to see some sort of failure, don't we? So if we're here, here's your 5-minute. How gross does this look right now? We've manipulated above this candle. We now took the low of this one. Right? Whereabouts does this candle stop? People are selling above candles in here. Right? If we are taking scalps, this is how you scalp. Right? You're taking this candle and you're selling here. Right? And you're essentially saying that this is going to fail. Or, did that just top tick us out? A little too fast. Where was that entry? 616? Right? So that would have actually made us 10 points. Somehow we got triggered, whatever. But that's essentially what people are doing. You're betting against expansionary price action, even with candles like this. And they're doing the exact same thing on this side. Let's get rid of those things. Right? They just bought down here. So what do we want to see? What do we look for inside of a range? Change in personality. Right? Ideally, that happens after the defense of the midpoint. Right? You've got strong price action, back in. Strong sell-off, fails, fails, fails. This is going to continue forever until something changes. And what you'll often find is you get a body closure, say here, and then we violently trade back in, or a body closure here, and then we violently move, where we're expecting wicks, and we get something different. Right? Let's see if we get this here. Right? If you were scalping the range, short, long, eventually you're going to be right or wrong, obviously. Like really right or really wrong, I mean. You're going to be right or wrong on every trade, of course. Right? Body closure, failure, trades back in. This closes up here. We've got something else. Now we run up, probably above this. Where are we at in personality? Quite a bit different. This had a strong movement, traded up, failed, came back in, retested here and left. This failed, traded back into the midpoint, closed here. Right? Very different personality-wise than what's going on in here. Now, I'm not going to buy this, right? But our expectation is taking probably these and at minimum this high here at 31. And then what are we waiting for? We're waiting for that movement to come back in. So we want to see price make a strong move Oh dear. Oop. Think they're covering? Or are they adding? Or are they terrified? If I was short, I'd be very nervous. Where you get your face melted off. There goes that. And, oh, are we going to run it now? Oh, there goes that. Okay. Now what have we got? Now what have we got? Who's going long underneath this candle? From higher time frame delivery. Wheeland. We've just taken liquidity. We're not going to chase. You've got your pocket here, yes. Right? You could argue here. And I think you'd be valid to look at that. I'm going to leave it on this one because I think that the midpoint of this area has got some liquidity underneath this candle. Right? Let's get rid of some of this. We'll leave our intermediate time frame pocket and then this here. I'm looking for that retracement back in. That retracement could happen here. And then we see some sort of range happening in here. That would be cause to go long with our narrative higher. We all expect this high to get taken now, yes? Nobody thinks that we're going to go down here? Or do you guys think that this is the double top? Right? So, for us to get involved, you've got your failures in here, right? You've got your change in personality trade. And now we've got significant price action. We have a feeling that, or we can quantify the market trading higher. And now we need a way to get involved. So this candle's got 30 seconds left. There's your 5. Are we holding to our guns or are we holding down here? Isn't this fun? Trading isn't that there's a 100% chance of this or a 100% chance of this. You're looking for certainty in an uncertain environment where you're never going to find certainty. What you do is you look at your probabilities based on price. And you form opinions and reactions based off of areas that you expect price to hold, right? We manipulated under this low, which didn't take anything, right? Where's our last manipulation? We manipulated here, we then manipulated here, right? You could argue we actually manipulated the lows twice here, forming a double bottom. So there's no trades in here other than something in here, possibly. And now I'm looking to see if this low gets taken at 607. And this would be an area I'd be looking long. And then I want to see how violent of a move. I'm not worried about that wick. This low's job is to trade back into this area of interest. We nervous? Me too. And I'm expecting this manipulation here at 98.25 to hold. This is what I'm looking for. 52.25. Right? So we're now expanding higher. You want to look at this, like this one? Very well could come back down into this. But I think that the manipulation of these has happened. It might take this low, 601. Might take that low. But I like this trigger. I think the business has already been done. But the important part of this is I got my trigger after this low at 607 was taken. Not this one. Not this one. Not this one. This is where the liquidity is at. This liquidity has already been dealt with. Who thinks I'm going to get wrecked and it trades back below here? And then this is the actual move that happens after 98 gets taken. Or are we looking short? And I'm going to get wrecked. Yes, so this one, after the liquidity was taken, I had the area of interest drawn up as being about here from this push, from this low. Right? And I think that coincides with the liquidity that was taken on the 5. Right? So I'm drawing it from here. Or sorry, I'm drawing it from... No, I am drawing it from there, yes. Right? You could probably argue or make an argument for that. Right? But I like this range here. And what I'm looking at from a trigger is... violent movement down, yes, okay. We've taken liquidity, we traded below, we swept both, and then this candle traded back up to its open. Which is how I enter on the majority of my aggressive trades. If we're looking for a conservative standpoint, then we're essentially looking for this, and then we're looking for a failure in here to get long, and then we're really expecting a violent movement. Because this is now the higher time frame being done. So this is aggressive, and I have a 10-point stop on it, or whatever this is, just over. Let's see if I get wrecked. Okay, looking good. I'm gonna put my stop. No, I'm gonna leave it as is for right now. You could go break even, but quite honestly, I want to see what happens with this imbalance. Ideally, I get a trade back down into here. That gives me, what is this? 605 to... Yeah, this is probably just going to go now. So no trade back down at all. Now, we're looking for violent movement. I don't want lethargic push above this now. I want it gone. If this closes... That 608 close. That low was 608. This is just going to run to target now. I mean, yes, we should be trailing stops.
Target filled.
Target filled. Thank you very much. Right. In an ideal situation, that closes bullish, but quite often what you'll see is these candles that form the sweep candle will have a wick on it. This candle, even if it closes bearish, will close inside of that candle's wick, right? Which shows that price is slowing down. And then the third candle ends up being bullish on these situations. And I don't know if we'll find something similar to this, where that candle, even if that was our trigger, that it closed inside of this. My goodness. Sometimes conservative targets really look out nice. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how violent you're expecting the movement to be, I suppose. Like, this is inside of the pocket, so I'm expecting, like, I would be expecting, like, this candle to trade lower and have a wick. Sometimes you'll get that sweep there, and you'll see this candle being swept as well. There's no real one size fits all. What you're essentially looking at is taking your shot based off of the reaction that you see inside of your area of interest. This is important too. So after you get your take, like of your objective there, you've got sharp movement down, valid high, and then what do you see? You see this, right? So you're expecting that to continue on. So this is a major warning sign if you're considering short. You want this candle ideally to fail above this one if you're looking for lower prices. And now what do we got? Like, is there any reason of me being out this? Probably not. Yeah, I think that based off of this expansion that we're really looking for a push up now. If you're taking two cons, would you ever target the top of the range for TP1 and then trail the second? Yeah, if you're swing trading, what you're expecting is, like, you've got like this essentially, and you're expecting something like this. So if you're swing trading, you're looking at the protected lows that are being formed, and then your stops here on your runner, and then your stops here on your runner. And if you want to follow that up and you're expecting, say, like, the important thing with that is, I don't really know whereabouts the high ends up being. Does it even have it on this? No, it doesn't have it on this contract. Right? So 20,000, let's go. No, I don't know. Wherever your higher time frame target is, whether it's trading back into a higher time frame zone or whatever's going on. Right? But essentially, if you're expecting, say, 710 to get traded into, then that's how you trail your stops. For me personally, like, I would be looking at whereabouts I'm expecting this movement to trade back into, right? So we'd be looking something like this. So if I get a valid high, I like to be out of the market and then looking to re-enter, right? So closure above, trades back down, maybe re-entering for this high, and then just taking 10, 20 points after that. But that's how I scalp, right? The key is that you have an idea of what your narrative is, right? Besides the high, you've got price reacting to this telling you, right? So I might be giving up a few points, taking it above, what was that high at? 52, when this high ends up being 56, right? So quite often you'll see it go up 30 points and then I miss out for taking that certainty. There's no right or wrong way. It just depends on what you want to risk or give back potentially to make a bigger trade. But certainly that's one way of doing it, right? Where you take one of your narrative and then you allow your runner to dictate based off of what ends up forming on the downside. Anybody, you guys can open your mics and whatnot, by the way, if you guys want to talk. Anybody have any questions about any potential setups or whatnot that went on in here? This was, as far as like narrative wise, I think we covered a lot. In terms of price action, this was very choppy. So in terms of sort of looking at where our shots are being taken, I think that this was more challenging than a lot of days where we've had some swing trades. But would I take this? Yeah, absolutely I would. Absolutely I would. In fact, this movement was beautiful. This movement was beautiful. Right? So if you're looking at the OTE of it, you essentially got these lows, 525. You've got this movement here. So now you're expecting a trade back in. So your long is from 40 and you're looking for 57. Right? Fastest 17 points you'll make.
Hey, bro, can we look at what happens in the PM? I want to see something.
Sure. But you want me to speed it ahead?
Put that swing here. Go down to the 1 minute. This SNDR with those lows. Put a zone there. The Wombo combo for the PM session. We'll sweep those lows into. No. That SNDR right here is responsible for taking the highs.
Oh, you're talking about like this one or this one?
Yeah. So that one that you just did.
Yep.
Right where you got the the low of that candle at say 10:45 ish.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Pull a OT or like that. That's a zone there, right? That little zone. This
You're talking like a retracement back like into the whatever that is there.
Yeah. And then take those inside lows for the afternoon lunch move, like the PM macro.
Yeah, I think if we get and we can actually zoom this ahead because this will be pretty cool to look at. If we get something because this is lethargic, right, on the 5.
Yeah.
Right, like you got 1, 2, 3. This will probably go, and then 4, and then 5, whatever. We'll be expecting some sort of failure up here, and then what happens? Right, we trade back in, and then we come back and we take all of this. I agree. And the reason, by the way, guys, that we would expect that is because I'd actually expect this low to be taken. Right? None of this got swept. This is a lower time frame double bottom. Right? But none of this got swept. None of it at all. So we're breaking out here. If this ends up being lethargic, we get a higher time frame shove from the bearish side, wherever that ends up being, then that would be somewhere where I would consider short. But we need to have literally something like this to consider short on.
But yeah, I think there's big longs coming out of that area.
You're looking long in here.
Yeah, I'm saying it's going to be the Wombo combo PM setup where those lows, inside lows, get taken into that SNDR, and then we rocket ship.
You do you? All right. Let's zoom this ahead, shall we? Let's go. All right. Extra time. Let's do this. All right, so you're getting your lethargic movement down. We're definitely expecting higher still. around this time where I start yelling, who could have predicted this? Or
Right,
some
and then we're going to leave
nonsense.
some like equal highs up here, and then come back and cook those lows out, and then cook them all in the
Oh, yeah.
PM session.
Right? So everybody's scaling in short here, and they're getting ran. Cool. Starting to get a little bit of violent. Ooh, that's good. Right? Now, change in order flow or not? If you're expecting the trade back down, you essentially have two different ideas. So Mikey's suggesting the long out of the year, which is very viable. You could even look at like the higher time frame area, which pretty much lines up with this as well. Right? Or you might even not consider looking for this short at all. Right? Entirely up to you guys if you want to wait for that long or what you want to do. Right? So we've got, here's your 5 minute, because I know you're going to ask me for it. There you go. There you go. There's your 5 minute. Right? We can all agree this looks a little lethargic coming in, yes? So we're getting ready for a retracement at some point soon. We didn't get our 5 minute valid high. Fair enough. Right? But what are we thinking here? What are we thinking here? Right? If you had to guess, you've got this failure. So at worst, we've entered a trading range at the top of the range. At best, this continues on and then maybe a failure. Or we just continue going and we don't get any trade at all on the short side. Cool. Right? Let's speed this up ahead and see what our next few candles do. But we can all agree that if we're looking long probably in here for a large move. I don't know, man. First imbalance, take the high. Love it. Okay. Whoop. Oh, we're going down. No, we're not. We're taking this high. Here you go. There she goes. Cool. Extra innings. Right? So now what do we got? This actually looks very similar to, what was that, Thursday? We had that triple top that ended up with death. Although in fairness, this would have had to have been higher for that. So the context of this is obviously a lot less. That high, yeah, was an 86. That closed 85. So even on this leg, there's no valid high just yet. Even on this leg, right? But you're looking at a range, right? Because this low has failed to put in anything significant. So what you'll likely end up finding, if we're going to go down at all for this, is you get a body closure that occurs above here. Because that will then adjust market structure. Right? And then essentially you'd be looking for failure wherever that ends up being. What time's 1 o'clock around here? All right, so you good with these lines, bro? What do you get? What do you got? We want, is that the one you had, this prior area of interest? We still good with this, or where do you want me to draw it from? Okay. Double top runs the load? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, expecting this high to go now. Let's drop down. See if we can catch a short out of this. All right, so what do we want to see? We essentially want to see, we got our failure, cool. We want to see this really unload. I think based off of this candle, we get another shove up, maybe taking that high. as it stands right now, I want this low or even that one to be taken. Maybe both. Let's see if we can catch something here. If not, then okay. Zin's probably already involved from like 94.50. That guy. Okay. Oop. Way too fast. Way too fast. Ooh, do we get it? All right, and we'll play this for 2 just for Zin because he's asked twice. And if I get wrecked, then I get wrecked. Does it take it? Does it take it? Don't want to be early. Okay, if this can't put in a new high now. Oh, that was beautiful. Oh, God. No. Nope. And how are we going to do this? $73, no, sorry, 68, 25. We'll see what this goes like. Oh, thank you. That helped. Bum, 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 bum. So where are we targeting? Mikey wants down here. I think conservatively we look at this low. The pocket of that's probably underneath this here, which I think is fair. Right, 661. I'm going to trade this very aggressively, let's put it that way. Because I'm expecting if we're going to drop, we're really going to drop. So let's just move that to there. And what we'll do is I'm break even now. I don't want trading above this. Look at this. Whoop. So we took this one, cool, 68.25. And 68, right? So could get a brief trade back in. Right? If we're looking at a higher time frame delivery, you're likely going to see weak bull bars come in and then unloading. And that's how you know your characteristics, similar to what happened here actually. You see that candle? Weak bull bar, death, right? Trading back into imbalances, failing above candles. Characteristic of higher time frame spooling. Right, and if this goes underneath here, then I'm putting my stop above this, 77s. Okay. Ooh. Does she take me out? Looks like she might. Oh, okay, Ninja. Okay, Ninja Trader. Yeah, I put it there because I didn't want to deal with it. I still think it goes down. This might have to trade back up into this area here. We can look to get re-involved if need be. Right? Probably should have exited there, but I was looking to trade this a little more violent. I'm not going to hop back in, but this would be an area that I'd be expecting death based off of this delivery. Right? And you're seeing lethargic movement, even though we failed underneath here. We might have to go above this, but definitely expecting lower. Let's zoom this forward though, because I want to see what happens with what we're looking at here. Yeah. Okay. So obviously out way too soon on that. We'll drop them back in. Here's your SNDR. What do we get? What do we get? Brief movement, trading back down. Where are you, Mikey? We're waiting for this?
Told you what my trade was this whole time, brother.
Yeah, all right. Everybody on their edge of their seats here. Everybody on the edge of their seats here.
Accumulation right above our bang zone.
Accumulation,
Like
yeah.
it.
Yeah. You gonna wait for it? Notice how we're not involved yet. That's a trigger, but that low's job is to trade up to here, and we're failing. This definitely goes underneath
because
here.
Because it's on the 5 minute, we want to see a 5 minute failure or a 15-minute failure down here.
All right. Here's your
what I'm
5.
saying?
That's looking sus. That's looking sus, man.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I got to get my T's.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna ride this long and then I'm gonna ride it short. All right. This will be a free masterclass for you guys. All right. So let's drop this down. You got 10 seconds. So I want a sweep of this candle, then trading through. Ideally into our wombo. What do you think? We forgive him for a tick? Are you already in or what? If this defends again, I think I'm in.
Oh yeah.
So if it like up to 23, then I'm in.
And you're like, is it 440 would be like kind of your low hanging fruit.
Oh, there we go. Sharp in, sharp out. Beautiful. Sharp in, sharp out. Beautiful. Right. So now we've got our SNDR here. Right. So this is our first area of concern, which coincides with if this candle ends up being weak. Right. And by weak, I mean this closing bullish and ideally strongly. Right. If we see failure in here, right, or the inability to close above this candle, then we're really looking higher time frame that comes underneath this. Despite how beautiful this might be of trading all the way back up to here. And if I take my paper cut, I take my paper cut. Whoop. Nasty business. Nasty business. What did that come down to? One tick. One tick. That's actually very lucky. Not even gonna lie about that. That's very lucky. This should have been 10 points regardless, but the fact that I put my stop just right there randomly is very lucky. Now we want this closing above here at minimum. Let's go up here now. Right. Your first target could be taking one off at the 23.6 of this SNDR. I think that's fair. Right. Again, I'm looking at this area. We're kind of going. Right.
Let's see how building a narrative and waiting for that shit to play out gives you like low stress trading. Like it's already up, what, 30, 40 points? Or 20 points?
Yeah, 17. Quick $400. This is 2 contracts. So this is like, what, 600 right now?
Yeah.
Right. Now this would be the area where I'd expect a movement back down. Right. And that movement back down ideally should get held up at the open of this candle at 625. Right. So I'm actually going to take this off, break even. Comes back down. Right. And I want this SNDR swept. Ooh, yikes. Okay. What do we get? Oh, I'm on the 5-minute as well, aren't I?
Yeah.
I might hop back in, depending on what goes on here. Hmm. 610, 1025, didn't take it. Cool. There it goes. And way too fast. Oh, I'm on 10 times, so no wonder. Wasn't gonna hop in on that. Like, wow, that's violent. Well, yeah, of course. It's going 10 seconds. All right, so expecting this. If we get another move under this at 601, that would be great. Although with this defense, that's unlikely. I think we take this high. And that's only with our long narrative, right? Personally, I still think that that's nasty. Wouldn't be surprised if we liquidated to the midpoint of this range, which is kind of what I'm looking for, actually. Would be like this here at 547. The midpoint of this zone that we've now just left. 15-minute change in order flow. Right? But what I need to see is this If this gets held up here, then I'll take that short and we'll zoom it ahead. Ideally, we get a liquidation of something in here and some major failure. Or, alternatively, I just get my ass handed to me and we fly back up to this or this high and Mikey's targets. Your position's really sitting pretty off that 5-minute sweep, though.
Yeah, and like I would expect like your target would be the inside highs, right? To go like on the 5-minute sweep here in our zone.
You're thinking like here or like that. That there is beautiful. Definitely this flat top at 56.
Well, like if I was in two cons, say from the whatever that 5-minute sweep candle is, like I'd take one off on the high, the double, like the high that put in the low, that failed to put in the low, and then I'd just let the other one run, and I'd follow it up 1-minute structure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're chopping back into this area. We've now failed here. If we get failure, then I'm short, I think. And this is more of an aggressive based off of higher time frame order flow. Okay, I need to actually see what the 1 minute's doing here. I don't know how you trade off the 5, man. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's have a look here. 24. If we even get up there. This will be very aggressive. See if we get that. Oh, Jesus. Come on. No, I think I'm way too late. What time are we at? 2:29? Get going. There's 2:30. God, I'm gonna have to ape in on this, aren't I? God damn it. What'd I say, 548? Yeah, 548. Horrific. Probably don't want to trade above that now. Whoop! Smack right down into the pocket there. Is that even a pocket? What is that? God. I hate higher time frame shorts. Yeah, that's just a 20%. That should actually be like way down here.
Target filled.
Woo! Okay. And now what? Do we get a trigger long just for fun at the midpoint of the zone? Or do we actually chop into the pocket, which would be ideal? So the idea with this is that change in order flow on the 1 minute in here. If we get that change in order flow here and we start failing to make valid, yeah, there's no trigger in there for me, although that's probably going to be a ridiculous long if it trades back in and goes. This movement in, right, back to this area, this SNDR was pretty key. We traded up, failed. Nothing I would have really been interested in short in here. I wanted something swept if that idea was going to go, or ideally a deeper retracement in there. because of the SNDR area here that was yielding some strong PA in that 5-minute sweep. But when we spiked down here and we were failing to put in valid movement, like above like this internal candle there, right? That to me signaled we weren't even going to trade above this one, which was the SNDR, which I would really like to take a trade from. That to me was continuation of higher time frame price delivery. Now, where we're looking here, and whether we're long or not, you're probably looking at this trade back up into this. And let's see if we get something like that. You might get a trade long out of this here now that we've tapped into that. I think that's challenging because of that low. And I really don't want to get involved in that nonsense, but we'll see if we get something in here for a secondary short. Right, see, gets swept in there, body closure, that's rough. God, did that just do it? No trigger here so far. Good reaction though. If we trade underneath this, trade back up, and then fail, then I would be looking for a short here. Ideally, we get, I suppose we already tapped into that low at 607. I'd prefer this at 610. That would be perfect. Okay. And this is very aggressive from the pocket, but I think that's 3 o'clock. So now you get your 5-minute movement. Right. So ideally we get a sweep of this, but that might have just already happened. Would you draw it from this, or would you would pretty much look at it from here, wouldn't you? I don't know. I think that there and then this. I like that area. Ideally, we get a 5-minute sweep. There it goes. And now if it comes back down into this area of interest, then I think this is fair. Oh, God. And then probably back down to that pocket there. Bouncing off of this, that probably should have been the conservative target, trading back into the range. But I like this manipulation leg. Let's see if I get wrecked here.
Target filled.
Lovely. And it might actually even take that low, which probably should have been my target from this retracement. Oh, imbalance respected. And death. Right at the end of the day. Beautiful. Clear as mud. You will very rarely, if ever, see me take higher time frame shorts like that. Just by the way. Much safer to look at like something like this, where you're expecting that movement back up. These are very rare and isolated instances. Yeah, so higher time frame delivery, you will find that you get a few confirmation-based trades, and you usually find them at reversals. So like that change in order flow that'll occur, even that barely traded back into the higher time frame range there, which was my first sign. And then essentially you're looking for failure with trend. But this here, that there was probably, like, I would actually recommend taking that trade a lot more here, that movement up, and then like paying yourself, taking some off, and even if you're stopped out break even or whatever, like we were on the remainder, I would recommend taking these trades with trend more than like trying to catch this short, right? It's that patience of not getting involved here, waiting for your pocket of an area that provided significant interest, right? And then you've got your confirmation after that movement comes in. But again, you want that confirmation, like, for example, you might have looked at this as order flow being down, up, like looking for that trade back in for go. And that might be okay if you get if you get some sort of a movement. You in fact got that movement there. But the problem with it is that you have to understand that this low's job is to trade into this area. This sideways consolidation, which then provided an SNDR to break this low. If we're going to trade back in, it's going to be to this area here. This area got liquidated, traded back down, violently traded back down, right? Traded back into the origin of that move, right? So you have to kind of look at your lower time frame order flow for confirmation, in which case this would be this. That traded there. It actually provided an SNDR, which then gave a move here. But that's tricky. Or what you're looking at is this is being a higher time frame move, lethargic, trading back down to our pocket, right? Many attempts to reverse the trend. And then what do we want to see? Ideally, we want to see body closures above significant price action on the 5 or the 15. Right? We got that here, traded back in, violent movement down, right? Swept here, but failed to put in a new high. We got that change in order flow in here, which was the reason behind that short there. So, taking that sweet area on these trades works out. Taking confirmation in here is far safer and ends up working out as well, right? And I think the trade that we took in here was probably the best one of the day, not only in profit but in stress as well. Where do we have it? Right, so we got our movement in here, but this movement, like that happened at 9:55. Right? How easy was that trade? Just following it up on higher time frame delivery from our pocket of interest. Seeing the reaction, seeing the sweep fail, change in order flow, trades back into here, beautiful, gone. Right? And I think that almost might hit the midpoint. One tick off. And that one as well didn't even come close. It actually came down for it later on. And that might have been something you guys were looking at too. Right? Although it did sweep underneath. So the takeaway from this, trading through that pocket, is that you have your liquidity here, which is essentially what you're looking for. For me, I would rather this candle didn't close underneath this one. I want that to be a sweep, which gives a little bit higher confluence, but just good. Do we get a lot from it? I think we've gone for 2.5 hours. My goodness. Right. Worst case scenario for this week. Trade with trend and trade with failure. Trade with trend, trade with failure. And take your shots. If you're wrong, don't stay wrong. And we'll try and guide through some of these directional plays, what we're waiting for, like for waiting for in here. Right? And I think that that SNDR for sure. I think that having this ended up with a really nice play as well. That pocket. We should have marked out that SNDR and that pocket for sure. Yeah,